13th, 2013. It is now 6:04. I'll repeat that again. 6:04. Today is August 13th, 2013. And Mr. Garcia, please call the roll.
Mayor Shannon Medetta,
Present.
Councilman Joe N. Garza Jr. Present. Councilman Frank Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilwoman Rachel Munoz.
Present.
Councilwoman Chica Hernandez.
Present.
Councilman Andres Rodriguez.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. May everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, citizens' communications and recognitions. And I have Ms. Brackettville.
Excuse me, I'm slow. But I'm getting faster. My name is Barbara Dillon. I am chairman of the board of the HUD Housing Authority in Brackettville. I would like to say thank you to our mayor for her participation in our board meetings. We post our board meetings and everyone is welcome to attend. She has chosen at times. I'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Chambers because there have been some drug problems over there that he has been able to solve, and that's what we want. We want housing to be these people's home, not just a roof over their head. But to do that, the people in the small children, they really need it. We've got to get rid of the drugs that live here. And that's all I really have to say. I thank all of you. I want you to know that we're alive and well. Despite of any rumors that might be going around, we are alive and well. So, and we're on the business. So I want you to know you're all welcome to attend our board meetings. They are posted at the courthouse and at the housing office. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Taylor Stevenson.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, Honorable Mayor, thank you for giving me a few seconds to speak tonight. My purpose here tonight is not to run the city's business. I got enough problems of my own, so I don't want your problems too. But it's to tell you about the relationship that our current police chief has with the school system. He's been a big help to the school. When we called him, he always came when he needed assistance. Losing Price would be a big loss to Brackett and State. We're able to run a safer school because of Price Chambers' help. As you work through your agenda tonight, we ask you to keep in mind that this chief of police made it safer because he was always there when we needed him. Thank you. We know you'll do the fair thing in this matter. I appreciate you listening.
I'm Kevin Newsom. I'm the high school principal, and as we deal with school and how it is in our world today, I want to tell you that we are very comfortable with our law enforcement in this county and this city. Mr. Stevenson said something about when we call Mr. Chambers, and I want you to know that that's not always the case. Lots of times we don't call him. He's there. He's visible. He shows up at lots of extracurricular activities. Our children at this community and our school are very comfortable with him. They know that he's there, and his presence is there, and he has been an asset to Brackett IC. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move down to item number 5, council communications. Does anyone have anything to say?
I would just like to point something out that I saw in this resolution. It's 2013-07-07. Section number 3 states that the city council will hire a project manager to designate and supervise the main street activities. My understanding, the city would not be hired anymore, or I misunderstand that. I would kind of know if this council, I know you can't discuss it, I'm sure. But, I noticed that maybe we need to think about it, possibly discuss it, place it on the agenda, we need to discuss it on a later date.
Anyone else? We'll now move down to item number 6, minutes. Discussion, possible action to approve meeting minutes of July 9th, 2013 minutes, and special meeting July 22nd, 2013. Has everyone had a chance to review these?
Mayor, is this what, this is the resolution that you're talking about, right? On the last meeting. So I don't think we can,
That can be discussed.
pardon me?
It can't be discussed if it's not on the agenda.
Okay, so I guess we can't move the minutes from last meeting. Okay, there's a couple of things we had discussed here. One thing we had discussed is we don't want the city manager involved in this. Okay, because of the reasons we stated in the last meeting. Things in school, things that have been accomplished, and to me, it's still a conflict of interest. Even though y'all said,
Well, I believe that Councilwoman Congress's motion, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't attest to it, but that's a moderate reduction, her motion was to the effect that the city would not be committed to any funds, funding of any new position or what have you. I just noticed this, so I thought I'd bring it to your attention. That we need to discuss it further, and then we can place it on the agenda for future meetings.
Yes, sir.
May I clarify?
Go ahead.
Mr. Rodriguez's question, the application itself does address the fact that the city manager is not involved in the project whatsoever. The project manager will oversee the program and address the council. That's how the application was submitted. As far as funding, the funding will not come from the city budget. It will come from the Partners for Progress. They have committed that. And that, along in that application, it is stated, and it's the prerogative of the council, that if the Partners for Progress do not come forth with the funds as they have promised, the city council can just simply write a letter requesting that the program be dropped from the city. And that's a simple one. We probably should not go on with this discussion. Matter of fact, we shouldn't go on with the discussion. I will have the questions of
Yes. You just clarified it, but we can go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
okay, fine, I just want to make sure. Perhaps if the council members have questions, as I do, maybe we should place it on the agenda of future meetings so we can discuss it. We can discuss it at length. I get the strength and a little confusion here.
motion for?
On resolution 2013-0707, to discuss it at next meeting, and as we want to have a special meeting for this, and we need all one.
Next meeting, we got already. No, but for the next meeting. This one, you'll get a motion to put the agenda on the next meeting. Do you want to second?
The application's already there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'll second.
If I may clarify, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the protocol for putting things on the agenda that really do not require council action is any council person, any citizen can submit the agenda in writing prior to the meeting on the second Tuesday after the first Monday, that Thursday. 12 noon is the deadline. Any council member or citizen in writing may submit a request to be put on the agenda. And that's all it takes.
Well, we got the employees here, like you can just jot down a note, say, hey, put it on the meeting, next meeting that we want to discuss.
Again, I'll say the reason for that is the protocol and the procedures that have been set up, that it is in writing from whoever requests to be put on the agenda.
So the whole council must sit here and say, we want to put on the agenda this, that's not good enough. You gotta do it in writing.
Mr. Garcia, you will have a letter from me in writing requesting to put on the agenda.
Motion made by Alderman Rodriguez. Do I have a second? And second by Alderman Hernandez. All in favor?
I'm a bit confused because here we are holding on for this resolution, and it's part of the meeting minutes. Are we to approve them? It's just been effective because, you know,
I think Councilman if there are some questions, maybe we should hold on to the
excuse me, we can barely hear you. If you can make this a minor adjustment, is it otherwise
We have two sets of minutes, so we have the regular council meeting and then we have the special call meeting. So both minutes going to be held back.
Which meeting is relevant to this resolution?
The special meeting.
Okay.
So the regular council meeting can be approved if chosen to, and then we can just hold off on the other.
All right, do we have a motion to
We have
approve
one.
the minutes?
We have one from Mr. Rodriguez and he was seconded by Alderman Hernandez.
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion.
Okay.
That we approve the minutes of the meeting which are not pertinent to this resolution, which would be the special meeting. Would that be on the 20th? That would be on the 9th.
July 9th, yes, sir.
On the 9th?
Yes, sir.
The 9th is the special meeting.
No, the 22nd is a special meeting and the 9th is the regular council meeting.
My motion, I'm making a motion to amend the main motion that we approve the minutes of the July 9th, 2013 minutes and exclude on a temporary basis till we can clarify some issues here on this resolution. That we exclude the minutes of the July 22nd, 2013 special meeting.
So we have a second.
I'll second.
Motion made by Alderman Garcia and seconded by Alderman Rodriguez. All in favor? Aye. All in favor?
We got, what was the count, three?
All,
Four, two,
everybody approved.
Okay, passes.
Yes, it passes.
Okay, now we can approve the other minutes. You'll have that motion.
You chose not to.
Now, my motion was to amend the main motion to only to exclude only this. We still have the main motion on the floor to approve the minutes of the July 9th meeting.
That's when you know. Don't know.
We
we approve the amendment. Okay, now we gotta act on the main motion.
Go ahead.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the minutes of the July 9th meeting, is that my understanding?
Yes, we do. So now you're going to approve the July 22nd meeting.
Now we're gonna approve the July 9th meeting.
I'm sorry, yes, the July 9th. Do I have a motion to approve the July 9th meeting? Motion made by Alderwoman Hodges, and seconded by Alderwoman Hoops. All in favor? All in favor and opposed? To verify the confusion, the July 9th were approved and the July 22nd were amended. Presentation, item number 7. Presentation by Harvey Newsom, CPA, President Allison Wozniak.
Yes, ma'am, as requested by the council, a couple of meetings ago, we had CPA present themselves for the council. Here's the president.
Yeah,
Can you do me a favor and just pull up to the mic?
Is this
I
better?
have a problem with my hearing. Please bear with me.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, that's something I showed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Garza, she didn't hear you.
I was just making a comment. I said, by the way, it wasn't the condition I chose.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't ask for this item to be on the agenda, so if you can go ahead and clarify to us about our statements being so far behind.
Right, and you have 3 months, this particular time, we're gearing up, and multiple reasons, and we did get behind, I think everyone's already aware of that, we're about halfway there now with this meeting, and we should be completely caught up by the next meeting, if that's acceptable to the council. I visited a little bit on the phone with Mr. Garza, and he thought that might be an easy solution.
Yeah, you and I discussed this matter sometime back.
It was a couple of weeks ago, you said you were going to visit with
Matter of fact,
him.
I called Susan
Yes.
sometime back. You were out of the office on
Right.
vacation. And then I believe he called me back and we discussed it. Basically, my concern is this, Ellis. These financial reports, we're going to get them, we've been receiving them late.
Right.
We got the October 2012 report last month.
Right.
Now, that's kind of ex post facto there, isn't it? I mean, that's after the fact. I mean, I'd like to get them, I'd like for these reports to be a little more current, a little more relevant to our financial condition at that particular time.
And as of next month, if that's agreeable, then we will be.
Well, I don't mind a half, 1 month behind it now. 5 or 6 months is rather excessive. That was my concern.
Right. And I appreciate your agreement. I think we talked about it. And anyway, if that's, unless there's another solution out there, if we're halfway there today, and we'll be complete by next month. Does that
Anybody have a problem with that?
seem like splitting the baby?
Okay, you said you're gonna try to get caught up.
Yes,
Can you tell us why you felt why it's bad?
I think, I'm not going to be throwing people under the bus specifically, but there was several, I think just in true in general, there wasn't one particular factor. This actually goes way back to changes in personnel within the city office, and the city office being extremely short-handed. And that kind of coincided with an extremely change of personnel and staffing issues in our own office. And so it was really a bad combination of circumstances. But I think y'all are pretty aware of the city office and the changes in the personnel and the shortages there. And the girls are really, really doing a great job trying to cover and wear a lot of different hats right now. But it has put a strain, and this is unfortunately where it shows.
Let me ask you a question. I'm not being straightforward about it.
Yes, sir.
I would like to know what the source of the problem is. Right? Either the source of the problem is on your end or on our end. If if the source of the problem is our end, then we need to correct it. If it's on your end, well, perhaps you need to look at it.
Well, what I was trying to say was it's actually a combination of several issues going on.
Let me ask you another question. Are you getting the necessary information on time to prepare these reports?
On time, yes.
I didn't hear you.
On time, yes, but the manner in which we're getting it is very difficult for the girls to accommodate that.
What do you mean by the manner in which you're getting it?
For example, just one, if I could just use one example, because it is a combination of several different. Right now, one of your office staff, her internet hasn't worked for, I want to say, at least a month to 2 months. And it makes it very difficult. If we're not able to fax and email back and forth, we have to stop and Xerox and scan and fax, and it's time consuming on their end. But that's just, one example of when you were saying timely, yes, but what would normally take maybe, a minute to respond via email, they have to, accommodate in their burden already with other issues. So they're doing a great job, but it's maybe not the most efficient manner, I guess I should say.
But you do understand that the gap is rather significant.
Yes, sir. And I'm hoping, yes, sir, to say the least.
I'm being frank.
I am, and I'm hoping that this is, a step in the right direction.
Well, we would like to see, I would like to see, I'm sure the council feels the same way.
Correct.
I would like to see these reports current,
Right.
okay? It doesn't do me much good, or it doesn't give me a great sense of satisfaction to look at and find out what our financial situation was 7 or 8 months ago. I'd like to know what the current status is,
Correct.
not ex post facto.
Ms. Allison, this report is November 2012.
November through January,
Okay.
and then
Yeah,
and then the same accommodation. And so I don't know how familiar you are with the process, but it's,
That's every bit of 8 months later.
right, and
Whatever we need to do, we need to do it and bring this report and make it current. Okay?
it's,
And she stated she would, for the next meeting, she would have them all current and brought to us.
and I also want to emphasize to the council that, normally, at a meeting like this, you're not going to get the prior month anyway, the month preceding. So we're happy there.
Any more questions? for
And,
her?
I want to say one more thing, if there's any issues with you not getting the information from our personnel, if you address it to the council, we're just a phone call away. We
Okay.
can get together and try to figure out what's on. Because basically, this is part of our checks and balances, the council, because we're supposed to screw up these numbers. And if it's from November, screw up the numbers now, right now, doesn't do us,
Well-
it does do us some good, because we see some tendencies
Right.
on the numbers. But, it's kind of late to,
And I think we're there, we'll get complete, and unless, and we're always available, if y'all have any questions, again, the same that you offered, we're always available, at least, at a minimum, over the phone, and certainly through email or whatnot, if you have anything that you want done specifically.
what's your number?
It's 830-775-8516.
8516.
Correct.
Allison,
Yes, sir.
are you the lady that I worked with very closely when I was mayor? I don't recall. It might have been you.
We did that, and I think we've worked on some of those workshops as well.
Because when I was mayor, we hired your CPA firm to do these monthly statements for me.
Correct. And I think you
But
also
you've been
worked,
doing them for quite a while. I mean,
I'm
I'm
just
talking about
reading,
2004.
when we had our change in personnel, this was given back to me. I've been in and out of this particular project I've done over the years. But I think you've also worked with 2 or 3 other members in our firm.
Well, I just started the job because in the 2 years that I sat on this council, during 2004 to 2006, we never experienced this kind of situation. It's rather an anomaly that We're so far behind.
Well, I think we can all be in agreement, it's not the best way to do things, and I think we're gonna get up to speed.
I'm gonna expect that these reports be expedited
And if you have any
to the
concerns,
extent possible.
yeah, I appreciate the phone calls, and I think we're
If you're not getting the record, you need to contact one of the council members or contact the mayor.
If it would help any of y'all, if you want to designate one person so that it's not, a shot, that sometimes also expedites things, that you don't want to have to be third person down the line in the game of gossips. It works out pretty well that way, you pick one person.
Well, we thank you for coming.
Absolutely, and again, call if you have any questions.
May I ask you another question?
Yes, sir.
Are you the contact person for the city of Brackettville?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You are familiar, how far back do you go with our financial reports?
Oh, with the financials, I would say maybe off the top of my head, 10 to 15 years, something along those lines.
We've been with your firm now for about 12, maybe 13 years.
We obtained the city through a former accountant from Del Rio. And then I came on board shortly thereafter with that change. And that individual had been doing the work for quite some time too. So there's been a lot of stability, which is a good thing. There's a lot of continuity. It really helps to have those old funds.
That would have been Francis.
Well, actually, even before her.
Okay, so you're Francis.
We won't talk about how old we all are.
Well, we thank you again now.
Absolutely. If y'all have anything personally, and short of halfway, and we'll
I just want to thank you for coming down here.
anytime. And if we ever need to be on the agenda,
We're here to work with you.
absolutely.
If you need assistance, you're not getting information or getting it on time or whatever the case may be, you can contact me.
Right.
I don't see any point in getting a financial report that's 9 months old. I really don't.
I appreciate that. And again, if you want to find one person that has, it might be someone with daytime hours, and if they ever need to be on the agenda again, just
Business, item number 8. Discussion, possible action, offer submitted by Ms. Margarita Talamantes regarding purchase of real property known as Brackettville, Block F, Lot E-126, all of 7, offer sum of $500 to purchase said property.
Mayor, council, in your packets, you had also a bid that was submitted and received at 9:05 a.m. this morning. It's for your review. It is
For the same lot.
for the same month. It was submitted by Mr. Yes. And that is a result of us, the city advertising in the local newspaper as was recommended by city attorney.
Mr. Garcia, I have one from Margarita Talamantes.
Yes, sir. You also have, you have that one, and you should have one, Mr.
It's in the very Mr. Garza, it's in the very packet.
Just take it over here.
Oh, Ms. Peggot's over there.
Yeah. I'll use her, I'll share.
Ms. Margarita brought to our attention that she wanted to buy that property last month. And then we had to post it in the paper for anybody else who was interested. So now we have someone else interested who wanted to buy it for a bigger amount.
How long did you, I'm assuming you advertised, how long did you advertise this?
One paper circulation, sir.
One second?
Yes.
How long is that?
That runs a week, from a Thursday to a Thursday.
So it does help to advertise.
Yes, sir.
We're getting 800, or we have a bid in the amount of $800, which versus one that we almost accepted or $500?
Yes, sir.
A $300 difference. Correct?
Yep, that's, my math is correct, that is
And
correct.
we agree that advertising does help.
Oh, I have no doubt there, sir.
Thank you.
Did we advertise the other properties that we've been selling for?
No, at that time we weren't aware, and so just nobody let us know that we were doing it one way. So now we started this one, going to this one.
What if they really need it? Church, right?
Yes,
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad we have it.
Is either one here?
No, sir.
no, sir, I didn't say anyone.
No.
Mr. Rodriguez. You might want to remove yourself from the vote.
He did, he said he was,
I did.
he said he was. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Do you need a motion?
You may, no, we're gonna, let me see what else we do.
Based on the agenda wording, I think that the only action that you can take on this item is to decline Ms. Talamantes' offer. The agenda item was very specifically worded to just consider her offer. The advertisement that he's done doesn't need to be redone, but I would recommend that the council take up at the next meeting the acceptance of the offer by the highest bidder in this circumstance. But the only action that you would be authorized to take tonight would be a action that's identified in the agenda, which is a action on the offer submitted by Ms. Talamantes.
Either we approve or disapprove.
Correct.
The wording is improper.
For the second, for adoption of the second proposal, if that's what the council wishes to do, yes.
Okay, so we're done. I'd like to make a motion at the table this, is that in order?
Well,
And we have to,
Even tabling it would be inappropriate because the exact same agenda wording would be brought back the second time.
Right.
And so you either take action or fail to take action on a specific item and take
My
action.
agenda said that discussion, possible action, offer submitted by Mrs. Margarita Talamantes regarding purchase. If that's the case, then it's not worded properly.
we either have to approve it or disapprove it, since she was the one who, we either have to approve it, her bid, or disapprove it, since she's the one who came up with it first. Now that we have someone else who was wanting it,
if I may also, that's why I specifically on record announced what time and what day I received the second bid. As I said, it was received this morning at 9:05 a.m.
So you're gonna
The
come back,
accounts, the agenda was posted on Friday.
you're gonna come back to the next meeting and word the item differently.
Well, depending on the action that the council takes, if the council takes action and denies Ms. Talamantes' offer, you can take that action.
It's a,
Okay, and then the second bid that came in this morning can then be taken up at next month's meeting.
so you just received it this morning.
Yes, sir.
Alternatively, you can push this item as well as a new action item to the next meeting too. So, in the event that there's some fall through on the second bid, they can still have this as a backup too. So probably the most appropriate action would be to table this and do new agenda wording for the other proposals submitted to the next meeting.
So we can't at all approve, Ms. Talamantes' bid, right?
Yes, you could. You could approve or disapprove just her bid.
Well, why don't we approve it? Because she followed all procedures.
Well,
she didn't
for the,
Well, she wasn't necessary. It wasn't her job to put the ad in the paper.
there,
no one else.
there's a $300 difference there, so
Yeah, but we are selling to the end.
if we wait a month, we can make,
No, the only reason we tabled it last time is we wanted to look at the property.
well, we wanted to advertise it and also.
We didn't get that, that's a good leeway.
But if we accept it, it's gonna amount to this bid, we'll be denying ourselves $300.
Yes, sir.
Well, we sold, Joe, we've sold a lot more property for a hell lot less before, without advertising.
That may be the case. I'm not gonna argue with you about that, but that may be the case.
Do I have a motion?
I made one to decline and push this to the next meeting with the correct wording to allow for this. I'll second that.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hernandez and seconded by Alderwoman
What,
Munoz.
could you repeat the motion?
She went ahead to table it and add it back up to the next agenda with the correct wording of both bids. And it was approved by her and Ms. Munoz. All in favor? I'm sorry, she declined it. The time she declined it, right? Also, or does it have to be tabled?
It's either take no action and it can be pushed to the next, or table it and it can be pushed to the next. But you wouldn't take formal action and do a motion in second, if you just don't want to take action on it.
No action. We have no action taken on this item. Okay, we'll now move down to item number 9.
Okay, so did we table?
Action.
No
No
action.
action. Discussion of possible action, resolution 2013-08-08. A resolution of the City Council of Brackettville, Texas, to acknowledge that the position of the Chief of Police will be under the direct supervision of the City Manager and employment of the Chief of Police. May be determined only for a single violation of the approved 10 general orders or the approved code of ethics.
Mayor, council, in your package, you have all the information pertaining to this resolution. As you might recall, this issue had also surfaced at earlier times with other councils and other individuals in the position of the chief of police. So it was brought forth to the council. You've had time to read the resolution, and if you have any questions, either direct them to me or direct them to the chief of police.
Well, I have comments to make about this resolution. This resolution assumes that we are operating under a city manager plan. And that question is in direct conflict with item number 11 that I have placed on the agenda to discuss. It reads, consider, discuss, act, and so on, to determine whether we are actually a city manager plan, form of government, or home rule versus a general rule type A. Now, there are some very significant stipulations, and I'm not talking about local requirements, I'm talking about statutory requirements that must be complied with before we can operate as a home rule or a city manager form of government.
Well, let's move this item into the last item so it can be discussed later
Can
on.
we read it?
Then we can go ahead and move this item to be the last item.
I would like to table it or suspend it. The rules, if you will, the order, and take up item number 11 prior to taking up item number 9.
That Mayor, I agree. Number 9 is out of order. There should be even after 12.
We have a motion to go ahead and,
I so move. I move that we move item number 9 to be considered subsequent to item number 11.
and 12,
Pardon?
and 12.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
I'll
And
second that.
13, and 13, I'm sorry, and 13.
We have a motion to move item number 9 after item number 13. And the motion is made and seconded by Ms. Munoz.
Yes.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed.
If I may, Mayor, just for clarification of the council, the sequence of items on the agenda put on there based on the time and the date that they come in. As they come in, I just inform them. So that's why they fall in that category. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 10, presentation update by city manager on current status of commercial exclusive domestic sales, industrial and agricultural water sales, and drug use. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table this for the specific reason that I have requested some reports and I haven't received them yet. I'm providing some information that's totally relevant to this subject, and I'm not yet compiled it all, therefore I'm not really prepared to proceed with this item at this time, so I would like to make a motion that we table it. I asked Mr. Garcia to bring his the drop measures plan. Do we have one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to get a copy of that sometime, if I can get one, I'd like to review it.
Sir?
So, my motion is to table this, pending the acquisition of pertinent information that I'm providing, so I can have a better perspective of this situation. That's my motion.
They did on this information here. You want to compare your information to what they're giving us?
Yeah, I just want to table it for now, because I've asked for some information on drought conditions, and I haven't received it. I want to check with other counties and see what condition they're in, how they're doing. Okay? I haven't received it yet, so.
Anybody else? Motion to table item by Alderman Garza and second by Alderman Martinez. All in favor? All in favor, Commissioner Rodriguez? The appointment and election of the city manager as prescribed by the local government code and municipal law and procedures manual. Which would be Mr. Sheehan. And this is an item that Mr. Garza, you asked to have on the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Before we proceed, are you familiar with the Attorney General opinion that was rendered? I'll give you the specific date. This is dated August 14, 2002. It was like I said, from the Attorney General. And reference authority of the general law municipality to assign to a city administrator and/or city manager duties reserved by statute to the mayor or city manager. And what they mean by city manager is an elected manager when election has been held. There's a distinction, a very clear-cut distinction. It's not a nuance. In my opinion, it's a major distinction between the two. Okay? That's what this item is all about. We need to establish beyond a reasonable doubt, simply because there has been so much confusion in the community as to whether we are operating under a city manager plan, whether our city manager is a full-fledged city manager, and I say full-fledged because in order for it to meet those standards, according to chapter 25 of the local government code, it states that in order to have and implement a city manager plan, there must be a petition by the citizens of the city. There must be at least 20% of the people that voted in the previous mayoral election, signing that petition. If that's the case, then there has to be a proclamation and a notice of an election. The city clerk must call the election. If the people vote to implement the city manager form of government, then the council will appoint a city manager. Now that city manager would have the powers and duties afforded to it under chapter 25 of the local government code, or what is also called sovereign functions. If that's not the case, then that individual will not handle sovereign functions and can only conduct non-discretionary versus discretionary. Non-discretionary, ministerial, and administrative duties. Based on this opinion, I've gone through this opinion and I have found 8 instances where it states that a city council of a type A general law municipality does not have the authority to delegate statutory powers and duties to any individual, irrespective of the title. It's not the title we're talking about. It's the powers and duties inherent in the position when you have an elected position such as that. Now, I was hoping Mr. Morales would be here because he has been here on numerous occasions when this particular topic has been discussed. Let me just read. Are you familiar with this opinion?
Very familiar, yes, sir.
Okay, let me do this. Let me give a copy. I've got one for you. Let me just review this opinion. On page 1, paragraph 1, it says, whether the legislature has granted express authority, statutory duties to the mayor or duly appointed city manager of the general law city, the city council has no authority to assign those duties to a city administrator or other city officer or agent. Page 2 and 3, paragraph 4. You can follow me on this handout. It says the city council must comply with the legislature's will as expressed in local government section 102.001 and accordingly has no authority to reassign the mayor's statutory duties to another officer. That's basically saying that the mayor is responsible for the budget, for example. That cannot be delegated. Number 3, paragraph 3, page 4, paragraph 5. Now, chapter 25 thus requires a general law of the city to hold an election to adopt the city manager form of government, and absent such an election, the city council will not have the authority to appoint a city manager to administer the municipal businesses or to exercise additional powers or duties the governing body considers proper for the efficient administration of municipal affairs. All right, page 4 and 5, paragraph 5. Now, we have an opinion from the Texas Supreme Court the opinion of the Texas Supreme Court in an analogous question or a similar question of county law shows why the city must comply with local government code chapter 25 if it wishes to have a city manager with the powers set out by statute. All right, page 5, paragraph 1. All right, page 5, paragraph 1. A general law city has only those powers expressly granted to it by statute or necessarily implied therefrom. The legislature has authorized the voters of a general law city to adopt the city manager form of government by complying with the procedures of local government code chapter 25. And it goes on to clearly state the governing body of the city may not, and I repeat, may not circumvent those procedures. Accordingly, an election pursuant to chapter 25 is required for a general law city such as ours to adopt the city manager form of government with all its powers and duties. Page 6, paragraph 3. The duties that the city council attempts to delegate to the appointees are more relevant than the title to the legality of the delegations. Okay? So what's more important are the powers that are being delegated, not so much the title. If a general law city appoints someone called a city manager, such as we have, without first adopting the city manager form of government under local government code chapter 25, that person will not have the powers and duties that chapter 25 grants to a city manager properly appointed according to its terms. Absent express legislative authority to delegate its discretionary, and I say discretionary, authority, the city council may delegate only. We can only delegate by law, non-discretionary, ministerial, and administrative tasks to that city employee. All right. Number 7, page 7, paragraph 3. Pursuant to section 22.071A, a governing body of a type A general law city may authorize authority. It's still controlled by the council, and they alone cannot with the following function. Administration is fully aware of this distinction. Same goes for the hiring of the city marshal and chief of police. That function belongs to the council. And to the council alone. The council did not hire the chief of police. Based on the above referenced statutory provisions and those specifically referenced in the municipal law and procedure manual, the Brackettville city manager derives his power and authority pursuant to provisions under the general law type A form of government and may exercise only non-discretionary, ministerial, and administrative tasks and authority. He does not have the authority to hire a chief of police nor any other employee without the council's approval by majority vote. Hiring salaried employees and assessing salary, I'm not going to get into that. Okay. Now, this letter is based on emails that I have in my possession from Eddie Morales to the Brackett News dated August the 31st, 2011. and to Demetrius Williams, dated September the 7th, 2011. I have copies of the municipal law and procedures manual that supports and verifies everything I've said in this letter. I wanted Eddie here. I was hoping that he would be here because he has some questions to ask.
I can answer those questions for you, sir.
Well, what I was hoping that Eddie would do is explain our form of government. So, proceed.
City of Brackettville is a type A general law municipality. We have not adopted the city manager plan under chapter 25. By resolution dated April 12, 2011, the council affirmed the establishment of the city manager as the chief executive and administrative officer of the city and gave him the unilateral authority over all department heads and he is accountable to the city council for the proper conduct of all municipal operations. That was the resolution as amended April 12, 2011. I believe the initial resolution was adopted in 2009. However, there was a time. I'm sorry?
What are you reading from?
I'm looking at the actual amended resolution dated April 12, 2011.
Is that in the local government code?
No,
Or
this
are
is,
you reading a resolution?
yeah, this is a
What's
resolution.
that resolution date?
The resolution date is April 12, 2011, and it's an amendment
I have a
of
copy of it.
a 2009 resolution, 090302. Apparently, in the initial resolution, there was a typographical error that referred to chapter 25 of the local government code, and it was, I believe, corrected in the amended resolution dated April 12, 2011 to refer to chapter 22.071 of the Texas local government code. By the adoption of this resolution,
Excuse me, Katrina.
Yes, sir.
You made reference to local government code, chapter 22, section 22.071.
Yes.
In what context did you refer to that?
It's just recited in the resolution. That's,
Well, that particular section just gives the city the authority to create a position other than the one statutorily granted to it.
correct. Section 22.071 gives the mayor and city council, gives the city council the authority to create offices and prescribe their powers and duties and fix their compensation. That's specifically what section 22.071 does. That was what I think was attempted in this resolution dated April 12, 2011. At that time, that was probably a period of time where we were not actively participating in the council meetings. And at times we're also not actively participating in the review of the resolutions and such. However, I do have correspondence dated March or April of 2011,
Let me
where,
ask you a question then, and I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, but I got to clarify this in my mind. Do you have any objections to what I read as far as the content of the Attorney General's opinion is concerned?
no, sir, you did an excellent job of reading that.
It's accurate.
It is.
It's an accurate
Yes, sir.
presentation of the facts.
Yes, sir. The question really comes down to what are those duties statutorily prescribed?
There are no deviations in this opinion. It's pretty clear cut.
Yes, sir. The question that arises as a result of the resolution that was passed in 2011 was whether or not the duties delegated to the office of city manager were appropriately delegated under the circumstances. In other words, whether or not what they authorized the city manager to do would have violated some of the statutory provisions regarding what the duties of the council and the
Are you in agreement with me? And now, I see in this resolution at the very bottom, it does make reference to the city manager plan.
And that is incorrect.
That is a fallacy, ma'am.
Yes.
That is a fallacy.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Okay.
The city of Brackettville has not, in accordance with the statutory provisions, adopted a city manager plan. The city of Brackettville is a type A general law municipality.
So we are not operating under the city manager plan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Yes, sir.
So, our city manager, and correct me if I'm wrong, after all I've read and after I've researched, I'm coming to the conclusion that our city manager does not have discretionary authority. Am I wrong?
He does not have discretionary authority.
Thank you.
The discretionary authority that would be taken by the mayor and city council. Correct.
Right. That the council cannot delegate discretionary authority. Are we in agreement?
That is correct.
Right, thank you. But yet we have.
Joe, in what areas specifically,
Okay,
as a city manager?
I'm referring to specifically when I say discretionary authority to hiring. Alright. The city manager hired the chief of police without getting council approval. He exercised discretionary authority when he doesn't have it. That didn't happen. Am I correct? If the voters have not approved the city manager form of government in an election held under local government code chapter 25, and it keeps coming up, the governing body, that's the city council, will not have the authority to appoint an officer or agent to exercise the powers and duties that chapter 25 grants to a city manager, regardless of the title given the appointee. And finally, page 8. This is an 8-page opinion. A general law city must hold an election, and this is in conclusion. A general law city must hold an election pursuant to local government code chapter 25 if it wishes to adopt the city manager form of government. Absent compliance, okay, if we don't comply with that, with the procedures under chapter 25, city council of the general law city will not have the authority to appoint a city manager to administer the municipal businesses and exercise other authority conferred upon a city manager by local government code chapter 25. Okay. I wrote a letter to Mr. Morales. I'm just going to read it to you in case you don't have a copy of it. The city of Brackettville is currently experiencing confusion and uncertainty regarding the nature of our municipal government. I will place this matter on the August 13th agenda for discussion, clarification, and possible action. I am requesting that you again explain to the council and public the provisions in section 25.001, that's chapter 25, and all that follows of the local government code, appointing the city manager plan by election. Section 22.071, which allows the municipality to create a position along with a pertinent provision on page 4 through 10, and this information I got from Mr. Morales of the Municipal Law and Procedures Manual. Now, that is not statutory. Okay, this manual is not statutory. This manual is simply a guide, as you well know, which describes the difference between an appointment and the election of the city manager form of government, and the provisions on page 7.4 of that same manual, which describes the distinction between the two. Finally, please review and explain the authoritative and legal significance of Resolution 2011-04-04 approved on a 4-to-1 vote on April 12, 2011. And I'll give you a copy of this, because I don't know, have you seen this letter?
No.
Okay, I'm going to give you a copy of it. And it goes on to say, I have enclosed copies of emails among you, Demetrius Williams, and the Bracket News dated August and September 20th, 2011. In your August 31st, 2001 email, you stated, I have explained this position to the full council, and it's my understanding they understood the nuance and difference between a formal election in order to form a city manager form of government and the mere appointment. And let me repeat that. And the mere appointment as was done for the city of Brackettville. It goes on to state that the only difference between the appointment and the election is the level of authority that a manager will exercise. He uses the word nuance. I use the word significant. There's a significant difference between the two. That's why I wanted him here. By appointing us to... Katrina, are you telling me that this resolution supersedes chapter 25?
No, sir. The opposite.
The what?
If the resolution is not valid in that it designates the city manager as the chief executive officer of the city. That duty,
Isn't that a discretionary function?
chief executive officer? No. I mean, that is a discretionary, that is a duty enumerated by
Now, by
statute.
title, but what are the powers and authority? What's the authority and the powers and duties assigned to that?
By statute, 22.042 of the local government code,
What section is that?
22.042.
Powers and duties of the mayor. What are you?
The first one.
The mayor is the chief executive of the municipality. The mayor shall at all times actively ensure that the laws and ordinances of the municipality are carried out, properly carried out.
In other words, the resolution refers to the city manager as being the chief executive officer. That is something that the council can't do. Cannot.
You cannot.
Cannot.
Is it valid?
I don't agree with that. I just don't see it. Oh, okay. Well, I don't see
I
that.
agree with
don't hear that. I can argue like hell, but I can't hear it.
Yeah.
And that's a handicapping position. I wish I didn't have it, but there's nothing I do about it.
I understand, and I'm trying to speak up on purpose. I'm usually not this loud,
If I could
but
go out and buy it there, I would, but I can't.
I understand. But what I'm saying is the resolution, as it refers to the city manager as the chief executive officer, is invalid.
Oh, okay, thanks. Not bad.
Now, the question about whether or not the city manager with the delegated duties has the authority to hire and fire, that is something that I have not been able to find a statutory provision that limits that authority strictly to be exercised by the city council or the mayor. In other words, it comes down to an interpretation of what it means to be chief executive officer and whether or not chief executive officer would be the sole person with the delegated authority to hire and fire. Okay?
I'm gonna give you an analogy, okay? And I'm gonna go back to the school system, those are my roots. When I was principal, we made recommendations to the board. We didn't hire. We made recommendations and the board had to approve it.
Right.
If they didn't approve it, well, what we did, we take the top three applicants, A, B, and C. If they didn't approve A, which is their discretion, at discretion, on their part, we'd go to B. If they didn't like B, we'd go to C. Yeah? And as a superintendent, 9 years, I made recommendations. Sometimes they weren't accepted because the council didn't like the applicants. Okay? But I had to get it before the I can have arbitrarily hire people without getting council approval.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
let me answer that. Nowhere in the United States of America does anybody, any one person, have the authority to control so many people. I've been in freaking countries where that's done, right? And here in the United States, nobody should be, no one person should be allowed to hire and fire anybody at their own discretion. That's why we have a council. That's why we have checks and balances. That's why we have 3 levels of government. Within the city, within the state, within the United States. And everybody sitting here knows that. So I'm with you.
I agree with you 100%.
The city council has the authority to establish the authority of the city manager. Again, this is not a city manager plan in government where the authorities of the city manager are enumerated by statute. The council has complete control on delegating what authority the city manager has, so long as it doesn't conflict with one of the statutory authorities given to the mayor or the city council. So my recommendation would be, if you are unhappy about some authority that has been given to the city manager, you have the ability to pass a resolution to enumerate what specific authority he does and doesn't have.
It's not a matter of being unhappy about it. It's a matter of just about everything you read in here.
What is, all of this, and the only reason that I'm tying it back to this is because this is the example that Mr. Garza used, was the hiring and firing. And I realized that Eddie Morales provided an email to me at the Bracket News that said that he did not have that discretion. What I'm telling the council is the resolution, as it reads, even though certain parts of it are definitely invalid and the council didn't have the authority to make him the chief executive officer, you can give him the authority to be over the department heads. That's not something that's specifically restricted by statute.
What's the definition, ma'am? What is the definition of what you're talking about? He has the authority to be, what did you just say?
The resolution where the council adopted and gave him authority, gave him the unilateral authority over all department heads, and he is accountable to the city council for the proper conduct of all municipal operations.
See, that is authority granted under chapter 25 to a city manager in a city where an election has taken place. There's a distinction there. The distinction is that the election, chapter 25. Now you can take anybody and call them whatever you want to call them. Okay, you can call the city manager the city superintendent. You can call him the city administrator. You can call him the CEO if you want. But if you don't delegate that authority under the proper statutory provisions, it's null and void.
Madam Mayor, what about the salary? Who sets the chief, for example, his salary? Is it,
We set that as budget, didn't we?
what budget? We never budgeted
Who are we talking about?
for this position.
Yes, we did. The chief police, yes, ma'am.
Okay, what happened to dissolving that position?
It was brought back up in the last budget meeting. All of us agreed to bring up the chief police office again. That's why it's in the budget.
It was done during budget workshop.
Yes.
We authorize the budget.
The
We got
salary-
tell Mr. Garcia to go hire Mr. Chambers, but we authorize the budget.
The salary is determined by the county.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
And if you're gonna pay the man X number of dollars, and you better budget X number of dollars.
We did.
Yes, we did.
Okay? That's fine. Now, the salary is not in question. Okay, I'm not gonna get into the salary because that's not the issue, as far as I'm concerned. My concern is a distinction between an appointed city manager, who can be a city manager, can be a city administrator, versus a city manager who is appointed under the provisions of chapter 25 of the local government code,
Which is election.
which is elected, correct? All right?
Chica, didn't we have Mr. Morales here during the time we did the resolution? So he was here during the resolution. So
Yeah, I don't know the history.
he was here then.
I fell off the map.
So that's why the time period wrong. Mr. Morales was here giving us.
But it is invalid, regardless, it's invalid.
We have to get a compromise, legal action to get the resolution.
And on the record, that was 4-1, I'm the one, so that's invalid.
If you'll just let me complete the thought real quick.
Let me tell you, Katrina, what my concern is.
So if I go, let's let her finish speaking, please.
Huh?
I'm ultimately gonna agree with you, if you'll just give me a chance to get there,
Oh,
okay?
Let her
I
speak.
don't mean to preempt you, but go ahead.
There is a specific power and duty delegated to city council with reference to the police officers and the police force. Local government code 341.001 gives the authority to council to establish and regulate a police force, provide by ordinance for the appointment, term of office, and qualifications of such police officers as may be deemed necessary. So with respect to the specific hiring decision related to the police chief, that is something that is enumerated by statute under 341.001. And so it is within the context of the council authority to make that decision with respect to the police chief. And that is something that could not be delegated to the city manager.
Okay, let me tell you what my concern is, okay? My concern is quite simple. At some point in time, maybe through a process of osmosis, I don't know. I really don't. But somehow, there was a certain degree of authority and power conferred upon this position, upon this office, that's in direct conflict with statutory provisions. Now, my concern is this. Now, we are aware of it. Okay? Maybe the council members before weren't aware of it. But I've done enough research, and I've talked to attorneys about this. The council is responsible. Primarily, mayor. Although we're all in it. But the main function of the mayor is to make sure that we're compliant with ordinances and statutory requirements. Now, what happens if we knowingly, and in some cases intentionally, violate these provisions? Anybody out in that audience will file a complaint with the district attorney or the district judge, whichever, and we'll have a lot of explaining to you as to why we allowed this situation to go on. Now, am I wrong?
With respect to the venue, I'm not quite sure, but there would be an avenue for complaints.
Well, if the law says you can't do something and you do it, there's obviously a violation. If that speed limit out there says 70 and I'm doing 85, I'm violating the law.
Yeah, yes, you have appropriately worded the agenda to include action in that respect.
Then we should, part of my original motion was to reinstate the position of the secretary. Okay, so with permission from the person who seconded the motion, let me restate my motion. All right, you got permission? Yes, sir. All right, this one, I will make a motion that we rescind previous council action taken in the passage of resolution 2011-04-04, and that we reinstate the position of city secretary versus the city manager. So we're going to reinstate the city secretary.
And again, I would encourage the council to specify what the specific roles and responsibilities of the city secretary would be.
They are statutory.
Not necessarily.
It's in here, the rules.
May I ask a
Now,
question?
there is a job description for the city secretary.
Go ahead, Gino, you had to.
If this motion passes to be reinstated as city secretary, we already have a position as city secretary, so how are we supposed to move that?
City secretary is the only action that's authorized by the wording of the agenda. If the agenda had been worded differently, I would suggest that you give them the title of city administrator, so that there's no confusion with respect to the city manager designation, and then, basically delineate what the authorities of the city administrator would be in the context of the statutory guidance. However, the agenda items as worded only authorize the approval of the city secretary
our city, where a mayoral city council form of government, correct, the city secretary, legally.
Are you aware that we currently have a position titled city secretary?
I have no idea.
Yes, we do. But we have, in actuality, we have city manager, an assistant who is called city secretary. So, we would have to reassign that title, if there be a city secretary, and give her another title. Whatever.
The only issue you have is that you're not authorized to take action like you're entitled to.
Can we give the city, Mr. Garcia, city administrator?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, it's not worded that way.
Okay, but we're just gonna rescind the action, okay. So, you tell me, because you're legal, I'm not, okay? You're legal counsel.
Unfortunately, I cannot forecast what action the council is going to take in order to have worded the agenda a little differently, maybe. I don't know what the council is going to do under the circumstances, but what you're effectively doing by rescinding the resolution is eliminating the position of city manager.
Okay, we are past rescinding the resolution, okay, we all agree on that.
Yes.
Can we tonight reinstate the position of city secretary and assign the city manager to that new position?
Yes, you can.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So what does that mean, city secretary? What do we have now?
Well, we're gonna have to put on the agenda and give her a different title.
Can that be done?
You can take it up at a future meeting. No problem. You're restricted to the wording
Call
of the
her
agenda.
city administrator.
So she'll be in limbo until we decide what we're gonna do with it.
Correct.
She'll be doing basically the same thing she's doing.
Can
It-
she do that?
You know, what's important here is not the time. You know, we can give them whatever time we want. It's the powers and duties.
The council could also table this item and take it up at a meeting that has maybe a more specifically worded agenda.
Then we recommend that we approve it, yes. I'm going to make a motion that we table this.
Well, wait a minute. We're
Because
gonna
it's
table,
already-
we're gonna
it's
table it,
already
we're
on
gonna
the
table
table.
it too.
Next week.
Okay, as long as we have a definite date, okay, this stuff's been going on for too many years, and this is where we're at right now.
But do you have the duties of what it is you want the city secretary to do? You're going to make him city secretary, but not give him the duties of what you expect him to do.
You're right. Yes, ma'am.
So I make a motion that we table it to next week. We can get this meeting done with the appropriate duties of what we want to do.
Yeah, there was a motion on the table already and a second.
There is a motion on the table, yes. Mayor,
Let
I call the
everybody.
question. I call the question. I think we need to move on with this. We have a motion and a second.
Yes, that was to rescind. But you want to go ahead and continue to rescind without duties of what he's going to do. What is it that you want him to do as a city secretary? That's what she's trying to say.
My motion was to rescind previous council action. Resolution 2011-0404, you got a number on it. And to reinstate the position of city secretary.
Yes, but with what duties? We need to write down what duties we're giving him.
Okay, well then, let's just say, rescind the action. Rescind previous council action, of resolution 2011-0404, period.
Duties, the duties.
We need to.
Will it
we need
be
to assign duties.
non-discretionary duties? Or what type of duties are we going to ask him to do?
Now, this person will have strictly non-discretionary.
Okay, non-discretionary duties.
We still have to define those, right?
Exactly,
We
yes.
still have to specifically define those.
Yes, sir.
Point 59.
There is a job description. We have a job description for the city. I don't have it with me, but we have it.
Well, it was a motion from Mr. Jordan, and it's in question, they just don't have move down to item number 12.
Can I have a minute?
Yes, sir.
So, for clarification, the position of city manager has been rescinded, correct? And the discussion that I heard throughout this was